Good afternoon. My name is Lisette Escobedo, and I'm the Vice President of Government Relations and Civic Engagement at Ultimate Health Services. I've been with Ultimate for about 4 years now. And my background is mostly civic engagement. I have been doing civic engagement work for about 25 years. So I'm really excited for this webinar today and to share a little bit more about the special election that is already here. The final day is November 4th, 2025. And so I am going to speed us through a lot of information. Bear with us, but the recording will be available, so no need to worry. Just quick disclaimer before I move us along. All the information shared here today is completely nonpartisan. It is under 50C3 regulations, meaning we are not going to tell you what position to take for this proposition. What we are going to do is inform you about what it is and all the options you have to vote in this special election. And so our agenda today is we're going to do an overview of the special election and key dates. We're going to do a summary, a nonpartisan summary of Proposition 50. And we're going to inform you of all of the available ways that you have to vote and very important deadlines for you to flag on your calendar. We will also provide you with additional informational resources in case you want to do a little bit more research. We will give you the right links, websites, etc., to visit for that information. So without further ado, I will get us started. So this special election will be taking place on November 4th, 2025. Remember, that is the last day to vote. We are currently on election season right now. Ballots already started arriving. I have mine right here. Yours should look something like this. You probably can't see it because of the green screen, but your ballot should have arrived already. The last day to register to vote is October 20th. However, if you didn't have a chance to register to vote, I'm going to give you a little bit more information about same-day voter registration, which is something that we have the benefit of in the state of California. Early in-person voting, if you decide that you want to do it in person, you like the experience, you just prefer that has already started as of October 25th. And so I will also share a little bit more as to where you can go for early voting as well. So let's start off with just a primer on how are you represented in Congress, because that's what we're talking about in Proposition 50. We are talking about the redrawing of congressional districts. So your congressional districts are areas where voters elect one representative to the U.S. House of Representatives. There's Congress, right? There's Senate, and there's the U.S. House of Representatives. The House has 435 members divided among states by population. These population numbers are determined by census data. That's why it's so important to fill out your census every 10 years. California has 52 representatives, each serving a 2-year term. So we vote these folks in every 2 years. These representatives voice local interest, make laws, and in essence, oversee the federal government. So let's talk about redistricting, right? So we talked about who are your members of Congress and how that is determined. How are these districts drawn is the big question, right? And all of this will make sense once we go into Proposition 50. So the U.S. Census counts everyone every 10 years, right? We just had one in 2020. We will have another one in 2030. This census data is used to reapportion congressional seats among states based on population changes. So this is why the more that the population increases in certain states, the more seats they'll have. The more that the population shrink, the less seats. And so that's why it's so important to fill out your census form, because we want to make sure that that population is representative of the actual folks that are in that state. After reapportionment, district lines are redrawn so that each district has roughly the same number of people. So there is always 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Based on census data, that's how we determine who gets additional seats to make sure that there's equity and who gets less seats, again, because of population shifts. But there is always 435 seats. California and every state usually only redraws district lines after the census. So 2020, we redrew district lines in 2021. For 2030, it would be 2031, right? So it's very rare that we are in this situation. It's very rare for states to change maps mid-decade or for voters to directly approve redistricting maps. And I'll share a little bit more about that as well. This is the first time that in the state of California, we as voters get to approve these districts. So now we're going to go, and this will all make sense. You know, we're leading up to Proposition 50. We're now going to go over Proposition 50. So what is Proposition 50? Well, first, let's go over what a proposition actually is, because we vote on them all the time, but that doesn't mean that we all know exactly what they mean. A proposition is a proposed law that we voters decide on, right? There's laws that come into effect through the state legislature, the US House of Representatives, and there's other laws that come into effect because we voters decide on that. It can create new laws, it can change existing laws, and it can even amend the state constitution. We actually had a couple of state constitution amendments in previous elections that just passed. Propositions are placed on the ballot by citizen petitions or the state legislature. So we've also seen folks outside of the store where they ask you to sign a petition for a particular measure. That's how these measures qualify to get on the ballot. However, the other way that these propositions can make it on the ballot is if there are, if the state legislature passes certain laws that make it onto the ballot, which is the case for Proposition 50. A proposition passes with more than 50% yes votes statewide. So I know we always talk about, during the midterm elections, this state is really important, right? Or that state is really important to flip this or flip that. We also talk about the importance of states like Florida and Texas in the presidential elections. This is very different because this is majority vote. It has nothing to do with the electoral college. It has nothing to do with how many electorates vote gets. It really is just how many people can turn out to vote. So it's all by the amount of folks that turn out to vote, which make it so that propositions like this can pass. Now, in the state of California, the way that we have the census, and then the census data is used to redistrict, but every state draws the district through a different process. In the state of California, we have what's called the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. This was actually passed through a ballot initiative as well in 2008, where we determined that we would use a redistricting commission to come together to determine what the maps would look like with community input as well. And I know we engaged some of you in 2021 for this. Now that commission is made up of 14 members, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 4 non-affiliated with any major party. And so this ensures balance and transparency. And so this is how districts have been drawn since 2008 in the state of California. Now, how did we get where we are here? Where we are now in terms of Proposition 50. So there was a triggering event, many of you might have heard about it, in the state of Texas, where the Texas state legislature decided to redistrict mid-cycle, meaning before the census. And so what they decided to do, because they do not have a redistricting commission, is they took it up to the state legislature to vote on new districts, right? So they decided to redraw the districts. And so what California's response was that if that went through and the state legislature in the state of Texas voted to approve those maps, then Governor Newsom and the legislature proposed a temporary shift in congressional redistricting authority to the legislature for 2026 to 2030. This is really a fancy way of saying this. Governor Newsom moved forward to have the state legislature approve new maps just temporarily instead of the Citizens Redistricting Commission, meaning that there are maps that your state Assembly, state Senate will vote on, will propose instead of the California Redistricting Commission. However, what Proposition 50 proposes is that this be something temporary, meaning after 2030, once we have the 2030 census, in 2031, we would go back to the California Redistricting Commission. So it doesn't necessarily change the way that California redistricts long term. It really is just for this temporary short amount of time. Now, Proposition 50. So I explained a little bit, but let me go into detail around it. So Proposition 50 temporarily replaces the independent commission's maps, Citizens Redistricting Commission maps, with legislature drawn maps for 2026, 2028, and the 2030 elections. So the midterm coming up next year, the presidential in 2028, and then the midterm again in 2030. Again, this is just saying we're going to approve these districts until we get a new census count in 2030. The Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission would resume in 2031 after the 2030 census, like I mentioned. So emphasis on this is a temporary measure. So the promoting fair, independent, and nonpartisan redistricting is a state policy has been something that the California Redistricting Commission really looked at. Now, Proposition 50 would pass with a simple majority, like I mentioned before, 50% plus one. So it means that the more people turn out, that's how this proposition wins. The more people turn out voting yes for this proposition, that's how it wins. If there's more people that vote no for this proposition, 50% plus one, then the proposition loses. So it's very simple, no electoral college, nothing like that. It's just majority vote. Now, I want to again emphasize what a yes vote means and what a no vote means, because I know this is a part that is very, very confusing. We have a lot of propositions that if you vote yes, it means no. If you vote means yes. If you vote no means yes. This one's fairly straightforward. So a yes vote in Proposition 50 would support temporarily changing the California Constitution. We talked about how ballot measures can amend the Constitution of the state, right? And just to be clear, there is our federal constitution, but actually each state also has its own state constitution. A lot of us didn't know that, but that's the case. And so in many states, they, over the past several elections, they have also voted on different measures to amend their own constitution about various issues. And so this would support temporarily changing the California Constitution to let the legislature draw the congressional maps. Again, 2026, 2028, and 2030. We would resume the California Redistricting Commission in 2031 after the 2030 census count. Side note, this is why the 2030 census count is going to be extremely important, because we will be using that data to figure out what the districts are going to look like moving forward from 2031 all the way to 2040, right? And again, this means who represents us in Congress, specifically in the U.S. House of Representatives. And just another side note, in terms of the U.S. Senate, we get two, right? So those don't matter by district, et cetera. We have two. We have two U.S. senators, and most of us know them, right? Senator Schiff, Senator Alex Padilla. Those are the two senators that represent the state of California. Now, a no vote on Proposition 50 keeps the current maps drawn by the Citizens Redistricting Commission in place until the 2030 census, right? And so hopefully that was pretty clear. I am open to questions on the chat if folks have any questions, and we'll share our contact information or whatnot, because I know all of this can be confusing. So I tried to repeat it over and over to make sure there was some clarity. Now, how can you vote? I know for a lot of us always hear it's so important to vote. You have to make sure to go out and vote, and then nobody gives you the details on how to do it. And it's actually Not extremely complex, but you have a lot of choices in the state of California because elections are administered by the state. They're not administered by the federal government. And so the state determines what level of access you will have to the voting process. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So voter registration, we always get these questions, right? I mentioned earlier the registration deadline just passed October 20th, but you can still vote. There's same day voter registration. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, in order to vote, you must be a US citizen. You must be at least 18 years of age or older and are not currently serving a prison term for a felony. Now, if you have a 16-year-old in your house, a 17-year-old in your house, be mindful that they can pre-register to vote in the state of California by going to registertovote.ca.gov. My daughter just turned 16. First thing I had her do was pre-register. What that means is that when they turn 18, they don't have to go and register. They will automatically start receiving information about their elections. So when in doubt, pre-register. Pre-register all your kids, your nephews, your nieces, everyone in your family. The registration deadline, again, was October 20th, but you can still register and vote in person at any voting location. Very important. If you did not register, you would have to vote in person, and it has to be in a voting location. Reason being that you would register that same day and you would cast the conditional ballot. What does that mean? That just means that they are going to need to verify your information after you have voted, which is something that they do anyways, even with our vote by mail. And so it'll just take a little bit longer for them to count your vote, but your vote will still count. And so in order to find your polling place, you can visit my findmypollingplace.sos.ca.gov. I know these are very long URLs. And so if you want to keep it simple, go to our website, myvotemyhealth.org, and I will share this again towards the end of the presentation. Now, let's talk about all the methods in which you can vote. So the easiest one is voting by mail, right? Because in the state of California, they've made it very easy. We all got our little ballots, and I know you can't see it on the screen. Here you go. Our little ballot, our ballots in the mail. Very, very important. When you vote your ballot, again, there's only going to be one thing on the ballot, and that is Proposition 50. Yes, no, you got to choose one. So what you're going to do is that you're going to put it in the envelope that they send you, but you have to make sure to sign your envelope. There is a place for a signature. Please make sure and sign it. They will be looking at the signature to verify your vote. That's what it's called, signature matching. There is no postage needed. So you don't need to look for a postage, go to I know that holds us up a lot from sending any mail, right? But you don't have to go to the post office and purchase anything. It's prepaid. Ballots must be postmarked by November 4th and received by November 12th. So that doesn't mean that, again, they have to receive it by election date, November 4th. That just means you got to send it before then, right? Postmarked. If someone helps you, they must sign and print their name in the envelope. There is a space for that. So you have anyone elderly in your household, you help your abuelita, your mom, please make sure to fill out your information so that the registrar knows that. You can also drop off your ballot at an official drop box by 8 p.m. on election day. And again, if you go to any of our websites, you'll see where those are at. We actually have, I think we have one at one of our Orange County clinics. And so you'll see it. It's big and beautiful there. Just drop it off. You can track your ballot at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. However, for a lot of different counties, they've actually established a technology that will let you know, they will text you if they've received your ballot. Now, you decide voting by mail is not for me. I want to go in person, but I don't want to go on election day. I want to go early, right? So you have the early voting options. In Voters' Choice Act counties, like Orange County, Los Angeles, and Riverside, you can actually vote at any vote center in your home county. So, you may have a church that you've always gone to because it's always been assigned to you as a polling location, and that's where you vote all the time. But you're out in a meeting somewhere, right, in downtown LA, and you're just not going to make it in time to go to your vote center. You can actually vote at whatever vote center is there in downtown LA. That's all it means. You're not assigned to, you don't have to stick to an assigned polling place. now you have access. In non-VCA counties like San Bernardino, you do have to go to your assigned early voting location that is listed by your county on your elections office. So LA, Orange County, Riverside, you're good. You can go in any vote center. San Bernardino, you have to go to your assigned vote center. You must vote in the county where you're registered, though, for your full ballot to count, right? So if you're doing an event in Orange County, but you register to vote in LA County, we highly suggest that you drop off your ballot or you go early in LA County. If you vote in another county, again, it becomes a provisional ballot, and only statewide races may count. It doesn't matter as much for Prop 50. Again, that's the only thing on the ballot, but it will just take a little bit longer. You'll have to vote provisionally. If you do, by any means, always vote, even if you are in another county. We just recommend that it be your county. If you are in San Bernardino, there's no way you're going to make it back in time to LA. Vote out there, and all they're going to do is give you a provisional ballot. It's just going to take longer for them to certify that it's actually you. Now, if you want to vote on election day, which a lot of folks, for my mom, she votes on election day every year because it's the hype and she gets really excited about it. Election day is Tuesday, November 4th. That means that is your last day to vote. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And just as a reminder, if you are in line by 8 p.m., you still get to vote. Don't leave the line. If you get there 5 minutes before and you get in line, don't leave at 8. They have to take every single person who has been in line since 8, right? You can also drop off your completed ballot at any polling place if that's easier for you. If you need help or prefer materials in another language, you have that right. That is Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. So you have a right to request in-language assistance at any polling location. Most polling places, or at any voting location, most polling places do have bilingual staff and translated materials ready for voters. But in the event that there isn't bilingual staff, you can always ask for materials in your language. You can even bring someone you trust to help you, your son, daughter, again, tío, prima, whoever. You just can't bring your employer or a union representative. That is actually against the law. And if your name doesn't appear on the list or you miss the registration deadline, right? You get there for some reason, this has happened to some of us, your name is not on the list, ask for a provisional ballot. You are still allowed to vote. And if your name is not on the list because you just forgot the voter registration deadline, then you ask them, then you register to vote and you vote conditionally that same day. If your name is not on the list, you vote provisionally that same day. Again, all that means is that it's just going to take a little bit longer for them to verify your name and that you're registered voters. So county, now there's some confusion every election on the ballot count, right? Why are they still counting ballots? It's been 5 days since the election. What's going on? Is there anything fishy? There's nothing fishy going on. Counting starts on election night with ballots that were received before polls close at 8 p.m. The first results that you see, if you're like us nerds logging in online to see what the results are early on, are tracking the results. The first results you'll see are usually early vote by mail ballots and in-person votes, right? So sometimes you'll see like no winning or yes winning, and in races, sometimes you think this person's gonna take it on day one, and all of a sudden it flips, right? That's just because of the ballot count. It takes a long time. There's a lot of us. But even after election day, counting continues. That includes ballots that are postmarked by election day. Again, if you send it on November 4th, likely going to arrive 5 to 7 days after, they're going to have to count it. So this is why the ballot count takes so long. And this is why sometimes results take longer to determine. In this case, maybe not as long because you either just have a yes or a no vote, but be patient with the process. Ballot counting takes a lot of time. Now, where can you go for more information? For official statewide election information, you can visit the Secretary of State, which is sos.ca.gov/elections, right? Or you can Google search, right? California Secretary of State, it'll take you there. For county specific details, you can go to the Los Angeles County website, which is very simple, lavote.gov. Orange County is ocvote.gov. For nonpartisan voter education, you can check out the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters Easy Voter Guide. at cavotes.org/easy voter guide. However, we partnered with the League of Women Voters for their nonpartisan information. And so all of you should have received in your clinics a batch of early voter guides for your staff. Make them available in the lunchroom, in the break room, read them yourself during your breaks. But you should have information, and this is all nonpartisan information, very similar to what I'm sharing with you now. And if you prefer to just talk to someone and ask them the questions, we also have a partnership with an Aleo Educational Fund for their bilingual hotline, which is 1-888-VEI-VOTA or 1-888-839-8682, and it is always staffed year-round. Now, what happens after this election, right? Some folks, I did get a question the other day, is this the election where we vote for the members of Congress? No, this is not that election. This is just a special election for Prop 50. There is a critical election coming up, especially if we have new maps. This is when we'll be voting for new members of Congress. That is on November 3rd, 2026. However, every election has a primary where you determine who will be your top two candidates that will run against each other. And you have a general, and they're both super important. The primary in 2026 will be on June 2nd. Mark your calendars. If you don't have your Outlook out now, mark it now, write it down, put it on Post-it, put it in front of your computer. And then the general election for the midterm election is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026. In 2026, you will be voting for Board of Supervisors, state representatives, and members of Congress. Some of you will be voting for mayor as well. And some of you might be actually voting for other folks in your city races if they've decided to consolidate elections with the county. And so very important to read your full ballot. Oops. The most important one. Now, where can I find this information once this webinar is over? If you go to Town Square, there is a handy dandy section for the government relations team, which civic engagement and government relations work as one. You will go visit there, and this recording will be available for you. Now, if you still have questions after reviewing the recording, whatever the question may be, you can email us at governmentrelations@altamed.org. You can also visit our myvotemyhealth.org website. There will be links to the Secretary of State, LA County, Orange County. Highly recommend visiting. Now, if you just want to stay informed, you can also follow us on social media, which is myvotemyhealth. We are constantly posting on Instagram, which is our most active social media. And with that, look at that. I'm right on time. Again, I saw that there is a lot of questions and chats on the chat and a lot of great information shared on the chat as well. Due to time, we will close this out. However, please email us. I will change it back. Email us at governmentrelations@altamed.org. Remember, your vote is super important, not only this election, but in 2026. If you are not at the table and helping make these decisions, someone else will make them for you. And so we highly encourage November 4th. Please vote now if you can. And then in 2026, remember June and November, we hope to see you at the polls or dropping off your ballot somewhere. With that, thank you so much. And again, any questions, we are available for you. Thank you.